Okay, hi everybody. My name's Ashanti. I'm a senior in the MSB and I'm the Director of External Relations for the Blaxa. And today we decided to host the Bridging Communities event centered around the Black organizations on campus because we recognize that all of you have influence on what goes on in the Black community, and we're trying to see if there are ways that collaboration could happen to like bridge all the different communities, because every organization has their own initiative. So we're interested to see if there are ways that you guys have thought of or have already done things to bring the different groups together. So first question is if you guys can just talk about like what organization you're representing, the regular like Georgetown introduction, stuff like that.
I can go. So my name's Kayla, she, her, hers. I'm a senior in the college studying anthropology and government, and I'm currently representing GU Women of Color.
Okay, I can, oh, you go.
No, you're good.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Monique. I'm a junior in the college, majoring in American Studies with a minor in government and hopefully journalism. And I'm representing the Blaxa.
All right, I'm Kai, she, her, hers. I am representing the NAACP. I'm a junior in the college, majoring in African American Studies and minoring in EDIJ.
Hi, I'm Niall. I'm a junior in the college. I'm majoring in government with a double minor in sociology and African American Studies, and I'm representing the Black Student Alliance.
Hello, everyone. I'm Abdul. I'm a junior in the college, majoring in government, and I'm also doing the African Studies program and the Arab Studies certificate. And my pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm representing the BLF and the MPLA.
Okay, so can you all state what your organization does specifically, and that could include what initiatives you guys have set place in the past or initiatives you are working on right now?
So the Blaxa, okay, Kai, I keep like interrupting you, I'm sorry. So the Blaxa, we just kind of like got started this semester. Super duper happy about that. Our whole aim is to, we're the first all Black media group on campus. And our aim is to uplift and amplify Black voices that are usually hidden by other publications on campus. So far we've done roundtable series called A Seat at the Table, where we invite people from the Black community to talk about topics. We talked to the Black Student Athlete Coalition. We also talked to a few Black students on like politics, which Niall was a part of. We're also doing like articles, op-ed, things like that.
With the NAACP, so as a college chapter of a national organization, like the, of course, mission is to ensure the political, economic, educational, and social equality of folks. And so current initiatives that we're working on is definitely like encouraging students to vote. So we're doing an Instagram campaign around just kind of what it means to be participating in electoral politics, how to take care of yourself during this time because it's a lot, but also just making sure that students go out and vote because that is the mission really of the NAACP during this time. So yeah, just as a student organization aligning with the national one, I think makes the NAACP kind of unique in that regard.
I would say GU Women of Color, the mission and goal is to build a community for women of color on campus through events such as like empowerment events, but also dialogues. So keeping the conversation going between women of color on campus. So in the past like semester, we've had our sister to sister event, welcoming like first year women of color onto the campus. We've also had like community cipher events, which is like healing circles, just to talk through the tension and the stress of this current pandemic, but also building it into healthier lifestyles for women of color. Specifically Black women, we also are in the works of doing the Brave Summit, which is like our big event that we do annually, which is like Black Women Summit that goes to empowering the Black women on campus, but also in the greater Washington, D.C. area.
I guess I would say that BSA is in a unique position in that in terms of like advocacy and creating spaces of community for like Black students, the ways in which we can engage and go about doing that aren't necessarily centralized. So like, for example, tonight, we just had a co-sponsorship with GU Dems for a phone call, like what do you call it? Phone banking. Yeah, I forgot the name of it. A phone banking for Jamie Harrison, who's like the Black man who's running against Lindsey Graham. But then we also just had a mixer tonight with the BSUs of, I believe, UMD, GW, and AU, which had like over like 100 participants. And so we're bringing about like kind of a Black community that we didn't even necessarily see prior to COVID, in that like there wasn't a lot of inter-school relationships, even though we're all in DC. So I guess like that, those two examples are just a range of how I think we try to engage our community, both as a campus at Georgetown, but also like in DC at large in different ways.
I'll start with the BLF. So the BLF, it's kind of simple. Basically, we help facilitate conversation and communication between Black organizations on campus. Currently, there are 17 organizations, but with the Blaxa, hopefully coming up soon, will be 18. Throughout the year, on a regular year, we would host a Welcome Black Week, and then we'd host events throughout Black History Month. We also sell the Hoya Blaxa shirts. This year, we're focusing, Michaela and I, my co-facilitator, on building a website that will provide resources for Black students on campus for a lot of things, anything really. We're trying to just fill it up as much as possible so people can have what they need on that website, but that is still in the works. For the MPLA, we're, as the Minority Pre-Law Association, simply we provide resources and education for students who are interested in going to law school. And, we try to help them, for like LSAT and stuff like that. We just provide as much resources as we can to make sure their path towards law school is supported.
Okay, great. It's like great to see like in depth what's going on in like the present. Like things are happening even though COVID is here, which is nice to see. So my next question is, so we are all familiar with club culture at Georgetown, and although Black clubs are a small portion of this greater group, how do you all think that club culture at Georgetown has affected the relations in the Black community?
Well, I think that like, oh, sorry.
I was about to say, if you don't think it has affected relations in the Black community, feel free to say so as well.
Well, I think that like a lot of the Black, and I guess people can disagree, but I think that a lot of like, not even just Black, but like organizations that have people of color and their perspectives and their experiences in mind, I think they're in their unique position of like, there's no application process with a 15% acceptance rate to like be Black at Georgetown or to engage with like BSA or BLF or NAACP events. So I think that that kind of necessitates, like, I guess you have like ASG and things of that nature, but that seems more of just an understanding of like cultural context and different expressions of Blackness than like, as like I'm Black American, if ASG has an event, like I can't not go because I'm not like African. Like, so it just seems like, so I think club culture interacts with Black students as like a population differently. I think it definitely like shows itself when Black people try to engage or enter those spaces that are predominantly white. I think that's when it's kind of like, I know a lot of Black people, like I have Black friends who are like in things like Philademic Society and like Blue and Gray, who don't even necessarily have a lot of intimate relationships with other Black students on campus, because oftentimes club culture is so separate that to be in those predominantly white spaces is to kind of have all your time preoccupied. And then you don't actually get to come to BSA or NAACP or BLF events. So I think in that regard, it's interesting, less about how we function as a group, but how as individuals, those kinds of cultures kind of spread us out.
Yeah, and to jump off that, one thing, and I know there's been a lot of conversations, especially this year about it, but is the idea that, so with a lot of orgs, it's you apply as a freshman rep, and then you're in the organization, and then you kind of eventually make your way to the top, like as you progress in your year. So by senior year, you're the president or whatnot. But with organizations, there's sometimes only 2 to 3 freshman reps, like max. So it kind of limits the amount of students who can get like actively involved. And so I know that at least this year, folks have been talking about like, okay, how can we host better like general body meetings or other things similar to that, so students can get involved, because I think there definitely are some sentiments of like almost elitism, as in once you're in the club, you're in the club. And so I know it's definitely initiatives of like, I've heard BLF, but also NAACP and other groups like trying to get students more involved and make it a more like open and inclusive space to everybody. So.
And to add on to Kai's and Niall's points, I definitely think personally, I like genuinely dislike club culture at Georgetown. Like since my freshman year, it genuinely gave me anxiety. And over the years, the more I deal with non-Black clubs on campus specifically, the less I want to be there. So right now, I generally don't go to non-Black club events at all. And that's because of how like competitive and elitist the nature really is. And I feel like if we're all students on the same campus doing the same thing, I feel like there's like no necessity to really go against one another so aggressively. And to that point, Black clubs on campus are very different, simply put, in that regard. And yeah, that's kind of like my point.
I would say to piggyback off of that, yeah, no, club culture freshman year was a trip. I feel like it does breed this case of like elitism, and then it also increases like imposter syndrome, where you're like, well, I can't get into or blue and gray or whatever, so like therefore I don't deserve to be here. And I feel like that's one thing I've really enjoyed about being a part of like women of color, just because it allows for an inclusive and open space where no matter what, you deserve to be there. And there's like an open space where no matter who you are, what you've been doing the past 2, 3, 4 years, you can go to a G Women of Color, BLF, and BLA, like NAACP event, and still be welcomed, and your voice will still be heard, and it will be well taken. And so I feel like that's what allows like Black groups on campus to be so successful or to be so necessary at at Georgetown, just because club culture can really affect the way you spend your time at Georgetown, and it isn't necessarily the healthiest.
I guess I would just say something kind of like what Kai was saying. I really like that the NAACP and I guess other clubs are rethinking like this whole freshman rep thing. Just because like I remember like freshman year applying to be a BSA freshman rep, and then I didn't get it, and I was like, am I not Black enough? Like that type of thing, and which was like really crazy, like whatever, yeah. But like coming into this very predominantly white university, and and you're just like, I'm not even being accepted into like the main like Black Oregon campus. Like, what does that mean to me? And like, I definitely agree, like it limits the amount of people who can actually be like actively involved in anything. But I do agree with Kayla with the fact that like, I definitely feel more able to express myself and like give my opinions at any of these events, like any roundtable I would go to, or any dinner, speaker series, or anything like that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all of your sentiments. Personally, I did not join any club my freshman year. I was anti-club culture at Georgetown. And I kind of just like, feeling like, okay, what if I apply for something and then don't get it? I don't want to feel like I don't belong here. So I'm not going to apply at all. But then like sophomore year, I got over it and sent a bunch of clubs. So my next question is, for most clubs, it's customary that board members make decisions or cultivate events that they feel the community would benefit from. How do you already or have considered including general members in on these decision-making processes? If not, do you think that this has further alienated your organization from the group that you're trying to serve? I do understand that was wordy. So if you need me to repeat it, I can.
Just repeat the question, please. Sorry.
So essentially what I'm asking is like, most boards have like 8 to 10 people on like for various groups, so it'll be a BSA, GWalk, whatever the case may be. And even though we are a small community, there's still 400 of us. So how do you all include the rest of the 390 when there's only 10 people making decisions, essentially? Like, how do you include the 390? Or is it just like you all make the decisions, maybe after hearing people say what they want? And sorry, my dog is doing a lot. What people say in conversations and stuff like that? Or have you been actively trying to find ways to be inclusive of the community you're trying to serve?
I feel like GU Walk has, what we tend to find in our board is to find like a bunch of diverse voices from different parts of the community in order to have, and it's like a responsibility of each person to like see in their circle, like what do you need and what do people around you need? And so I would say that's been pretty good in terms of like having a diverse amount of events, including like professional events, but also mental health events, and also like just empowerment events. But I would say we've also, I think it definitely is like more present this year because of COVID. But we definitely have like a suggestion box that we always ask people like in our newsletter, like if you have any ideas for an event, please email us, which I feel like has definitely been more utilized this semester than any other semester of like, okay, I need just a chill event, or I would like to just like have an event where we can talk about this or this. I feel like GWalk is definitely, most of our events tend to be in collaboration with another group on campus. So I feel like that also affects what we choose to do. And typically I like hope that it does give us a better range of voices on what exactly the people in the community need from us. So I would say we definitely need to support, maybe we can have like a bigger suggestion box, because once again, our suggestion box is only in our newsletter. So perhaps we need to do a better outreach in terms of voices that haven't even heard of GU Walk, especially the freshman class this year, who haven't even been on campus. So maybe we can, I know in the future we are planning on having a LinkedIn page that connects women of color on campus, but also the alumni. And hopefully that will give us another avenue, people to like give us suggestions on what they want from us.
I think just to go off Kayla's point, I feel like that's huge and definitely something that is the same with the NAACP. Like in our newsletter, we have a little box at the bottom. But thinking about it in the context of like right now and voting and things like that, I think with most orgs, we have a system where like our general body members vote on who will be the leaders in the organization for the next year. So it's kind of assumed that, okay, well, we picked these people, so they will lead us, they will host events that are about us and whatnot. But like in terms of kind of electoral politics and what's happening, like just because you believed in them in that moment doesn't necessarily mean that like they are the like end all be all of what should happen. So I think just as activists on campus, it's important that we stay engaged and in touch with these other communities, even ones that you don't necessarily like always engage with. For example, like I'm not an athlete, but as a part of the NAACP, it's important that I engage with that community so we have that representation, but also like know what it is that they need as still members of the Black community, which is who we serve. So yeah, I guess just staying engaged throughout the year and listening to other voices as to like what is needed, because like I might be like, I need a mental health event, but the community might be like, we need this plus something else. And so I think just our reach can be extended if we really listen to student voices.
I think that like, for example, like for some of the like, I guess I don't want to say the more noteworthy, but I guess like the more prominent events that BSA has, like Kwanzaa and Visions, which will not be happening this year, maybe. No, I hope it will be. And digitally, you want to dress up digitally? You take pictures in Zoom?
Maybe it's my senior year. I might want to throw on a dress.
Okay. You know what? I will take that back to the board as positive feedback. But no, like for these types of events, we do have like committees and things of that nature. So that like kind of creates a situation for students to be engaged. But I think that like ultimately, like you're supposed to be actively, not just as like board members, but just being as a part of the community. You're supposed to be able to like read the polls, see what people are talking about, and understand, well, this is a conversation that's happening, so maybe we need a space for this. Like people are talking about, well, they're having issues with their absentee. Like I remember last year, a bunch of people had issues with their absentee ballots when they were like trying to vote in Texas or Georgia. So like the response to that, we weren't able to have it because the world ended. But what we wanted to do was we wanted to have an event with some of like the law professors about like, here are the things that you should know when you're sending an absentee ballot for each state where people were having issues, so that, hey, you don't make this small mistake. Or like, well, people are having this really big cultural conversation about Black women and Black men, so do we need to have a space that's mediated to have a conversation about these relationships within the community? So I feel like it's also asking and having like forums to be like, here's something I would like to see specifically, and having that person engage. So it's not just like somebody telling you this is a good idea and then you do it and you don't rope them into the process of developing the event, because that's kind of shitty. But I do think that there's also just a level of being in community with people and understanding to an extent what your community needs and facilitating that.
I mean, now that I like really think about it, I do feel like we need to work a little bit on the suggestion aspect of being an organization. I definitely think there needs to be inclusivity when it comes to general members of whatever organization. But I guess for the MPLA, I feel like that's where kind of this problem comes in, because obviously there's always the general body meeting at the beginning of the year, and you kind of see what people want, what people don't want, and then like throughout the year we just get like suggestion after the event where you talk to people here and there, then they'll provide an opinion or feedback. But I feel like the only real time where we're taking, um, like inclusivity from the communities, like for example, our conference at the end of the year, or because we give like opportunities to volunteer and work just like the BSA does with their events, or for example, the National Black Beat Law Conference that we go to. Also, we take students that are not part of the board, and I feel like even though that does serve some of these concerns, I feel like it could be done a little bit more. But for the BLF, there's a little bit more outreach because that's how the BLF needs to operate. We kind of like have to speak to a lot of the people involved in order to make certain decisions, especially presidents and reps from all the clubs, all the Black clubs on campus. And for example, like when we were working on the BLF fund, Michaela and I were going out talking to professors and students specifically what they would like to see with the BLF fund. And we did the exact same thing when it comes to the website that is currently being worked on, just to make sure we get what people want. But again, I do still feel like we need to work on that.
For the Blaxa, I think we're in a very interesting position because we are really new. And I mean, when I think about it, like, I think we could definitely do like way more, right? I think when we were first starting out though, I think we did a good job we had a couple like meetings in the beginning of the year. This was like fall 2019, I think. When we weren't even a club yet, but we were still getting a gauge of what people wanted us to talk about and things like that, who was interested in writing pieces. But I think, I mean, I can speak from the editorial side as editor-in-chief, but I've definitely been more focused on, I guess, like getting out content when I should be more trying to maybe like use social media more, I think, and like ask people what they would like to be written about. What are some issues or topics that they think are really like pivotal to be spoken about, things like that. But yeah, no, I definitely think we could do better.
Yeah, I just kind of want to like piggyback off of what Monique said in terms like for the Blaxa. Like, I don't know if you all are familiar with our Shades of Blaxa campaign. Part of the reason why that idea even like came up or like we cultivated this like social media thing is because we recognize that there are so many other Black people on campus that are like maybe not directly involved, but like they're still here, but they're kind of like the hidden voices of the Black community. So we kind of like thought of a way to highlight them through Shades of Black. So to kind of hear like what their why is, or like why are they at Georgetown, or like maybe there's something that they love to do that nobody knows about, or maybe they just want to be heard, period. So like I do agree with the whole suggestion box thing, but I think we also have been very like cognizant of trying to hear all voices. So, next question. In previous years, there has been an unspoken tension or competitive spirit, either or, you can take it either way, between Black organizations on campus. As leaders of the organization this year, what do you intend to do to foster better intra-community relations?
Inter-community Zooms are really weird right now, so I feel like this is a struggle, definitely considering we're virtual. But I think the biggest thing is probably partnerships and things like that. I don't know, but what other folks are doing, but yeah.
Actually, I was pretty like before being a BLF facilitator, I was pretty concerned about that, about some things I heard from other leaders, from past facilitators, um, and like being in certain meetings, seeing these tensions and microaggressions kind of. Um, I was actually like, I don't know. I feel like it wasn't a problem, or it isn't a problem as much right now just because it's all virtual. So it doesn't really, feel like it. Um, but I don't know. I was not looking forward to all of that basically as like a BLF facilitator. And then I like had a plan in my head to, to figure out, I guess, how to work around that and how to get people working together a little bit better. But obviously, that I couldn't really implement that. But eventually, I'm gonna try again in a different way. But the whole idea was to kind of like centralize the way the BLF works, at least for the year, um, just so we can obviously adapt better to the new circumstances, ease the tension a little bit. But then, I couldn't really get that into I couldn't really implement that the way that I wanted to. But
I would say continuous conversation is definitely necessary. And to like piggyback off of previous points, it has felt like a huge disconnect just because we are virtual. Like I'll admit, like I feel like beforehand in previous semesters, there's definitely been a communication in terms of partnerships. Like, okay, we can do this event together. Whereas so far in this semester, because everyone's been scrambling to even get running because this is such a new space, it's definitely been like, I'm not too sure what's going on across Black organizations on campus. And I feel like that definitely needs to be fixed where, because who knows what's going to happen next semester. So we are definitely going to have to, move forward and actually take move forward in our relationships with each of those Black organizations so we can continue to have these conversations even though we are virtual. And I would say that's the only solution I could think of, that there is definitely going to need to be continuous dialogue in order to solve everything that's been going on?
No, I think I could really just echo what Kayla was saying because I think the pandemic gave us a break, but I don't necessarily know if it gave communal perspective. So I don't know if I'm not certain that if once we get back on campus, whenever that is, and whenever there's a level of normalcy for us to kind of just go into typically how we function, that like a lot of the issues aren't just going to immediately like reassert themselves because they haven't been fixed. We're just not on campus. So I think like for me this year, especially in terms of how I operate within my organization and hope for our organization to operate with others, is just like none of this shit is that deep. Like, I mean, like, you know, it's so stupid a little bit in that it's like 400 Black people on a campus and we're all in different clubs, and all those clubs are important because they give a lot of cultural subtext and different voices can be elevated in those spaces. So these clubs should exist. But there's like fucking 400 of us and there's a bunch of white kids like hate us a little bit. So it's just like it is, and like and you, even if you're talking about like Blackness is like a global subject right now, when you're looking at like Nigeria, when you're looking at here, when you're looking at Canada, when you're looking at all these countries, it's just like it's not that deep and there's nothing to be gained from perpetuating divisions or feeling like there's no place where BSA can reflect and say, hey, you know what, because we are like, because of how like not even just within the Black community, but because of the perception of us as like this weird gatekeeper in terms of like the way in which non-Black people and white people reach out to the Black community, like there's an understanding of that position, and moving forward, how do we more equitably make it clear that like we're not just the Black organization, and there's a way to engage with all of them if you're trying to have meaningful connections with Black people, or having specific like the Hoya wanted to partner with us to do something to get Black writers, and it's like, well, the Blacks exist, so like that's not like we like cool. But like the VSA board doesn't want to write op-eds for y'all, but there are Black people who fucking have a newspaper who write op-eds who might want to write an op-ed. So it's like that kind of work of just like recirculating how people are engaging with us. And just I think that if all clubs and organizations are willing to like self-reflect in just how what role they've played in that dissension, and understanding that ultimately it doesn't matter, it's not that deep, and it doesn't benefit us to continue it, I think we could be in a better position. I also apologize if I wasn't supposed to curse. It just happened.
Good.
Oh, I just wanted to bounce off Niall's point too. I think that, well, if you look historically, like there are so many Black organizations, for example, like during the Civil Rights Movement, who did not align with one another. And I think that's one of the perks of having so many organizations, is that like no two Black people are going to think the same. None of us are going to be like have exactly the same perspectives, or even think like, you know, that the same should be done for the community, or that action should be taken. Like, for example, the Black Survivor Coalition, the creation and like the protests that happened last semester, there was a lot of division in the community as to whether or not that should happen. But what I think is really important to recognize is the fact that this, to a degree, I think it depends too on perspective, but that it is a generally a safe space for people to voice their opinions about being Black, about how they feel, about what representation should look like for them. And I think as leaders on campus, quote unquote, it's our job to make sure that they're heard and represented, but also that like we understand that we're not all going to think the same. It's just having that, like, I don't know, operating under the assumption that like we are here to empower and uplift one another as Black students on campus, and then moving from that point forward, like, okay, how are we going to do this? Even though we may have differences, which is fine. Like, I think that it would be bad if we were all like, this is exactly what all Black people want and need. So I think as much as division sucks, there is some power to it.
I like have no idea, and I was telling Ashanti this, I really don't have any idea what this tension is like among the clubs. I think it's maybe because like I haven't been on the board of a Black org before. So maybe I don't know like the ins and outs, and that's why. But since there is, you guys have all talked about this, I'll just echo what Niall was saying about like, I just feel like hopefully a lot of people have done a lot of growth over this time apart, and we'll just return back to school senior year or next year Just having like, just not focusing on the petty stuff. Like let's be grateful that we're alive, that we got through this, that we are privileged enough to be back together, and just take that into account and kind of move forward with that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Be grateful that we're alive, you know? Like COVID is like dead serious. I feel like sometimes like we just like a lot of people lose perspective in all things, right? And it's just like we're alive, we're breathing, let's move on. So my last question is, do you all have any collaborative events coming up that you want to share with the Black community? Or if you don't, any idea that you have thought of within like the past 40 minutes of how you would like to collab with one another?
A super close one, or one close to this day, is we've been talking about at NAACP doing a like Hoya Blaxa or somehow connecting the Black community, but a watch party for the election. Like typically when we're on campus, the NAACP hosts that and partners with like BLF or BSA, other orgs. And so I think that a space like that would be really powerful and much needed, because I think no matter what happens, it's going to be wild. So to just at least know that we have community and that other students who maybe not be in orgs but are just still Black Hoyas have community is going to be really important to just like get through this.
I feel like echoing that, yeah, post-election, no matter what the results, I feel like it's just going to be difficult for a lot of people. So I know GU Walk, we are currently in the works of planning a post-election event. We're just given an opportunity for people to like rant and hopefully release all of that tension. And we're partnering with, well, we're hoping to get in DESA Women of Color to hopefully also have an event where women of color across campus can talk to their reps and hopefully mediate or talk about improvements we can make on campus.
So the Blaxa, we don't have anything concrete coming up, but I'm pretty sure we're gonna do another A Seat at the Table roundtable before the end of the year. So look out for that. We also have pieces on our website all the time at www.theblaxa.com. If you want to write for us or get involved with us, then you can just email me, mw1158, or theblaxa@georgetown.edu.
I guess I just want to echo what everybody else has already been saying in general, that like, you know, I don't think BSA has anything super specific in terms of this is what we want to do with GU Walk, this is what we want to do with NAACP, but I think there's spaces for it. I think a lot of our conventional, like a big thing that BSA does that takes up a significant amount of our blocking would be like pardons. That's just not happening. That might not even happen like when we get back to campus officially, because that's like an unsafe environment post-COVID. So I think that like I'm open to, in whatever ways, whether it's like political engagement or just like social commentary conversations, because I do miss those. I appreciated the conversations that we had about just really relevant topics that brought a lot of people across different clubs together, even if you didn't go to NAACP or GU Walk or BSA things typically, because it's a hot topic conversation and you want to see what other people are saying and you want to speak your own mind, people come. I think that would be a nice format of event that would just attract a lot of Georgetown people who might be kind of disengaged with the campus life in general. But yeah, I'm open, and I think BSA is open to collaboration. It's just a matter of like figuring out what the event is and going from there.
The BLF and the MPLA are not necessary. I mean, sorry, the BLF is not really hosting an event sometime soon, but the MPLA is. I'm sorry, I genuinely cannot remember. I was not there at the last meeting. I'm sorry. But I guess as a BLF facilitator, my whole purpose is to try to make relations between Black clubs on campus as smooth as possible and as productive as possible. But since the semester has started, I have noticed that Black clubs on campus are scattering away from one another, not on purpose. It's just the circumstances, and I understand. But I would definitely love to see more co-hosting, co-sponsoring, and collabs, and an active um, action to work with one another. Um, because I feel like that's the that's the only way right now that you can really grow these relationships and strengthen our bonds. I guess within the Black community. Um, yeah, that's kind of my whole thing. I get this. There's no better time for us to work with one another and work with each other, and I just want to see more of that. Put simply.
I think the hot topic is a great idea, Niall. So if you want to partner with Blaxa for that, we definitely can make it happen. But that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for joining us to talk about bridging communities, and I hope you enjoy your day.